you today? We're back with my favorite attorney, Ronald Richards. Hi, Ronald. How are you?
Very good. How are you?
Doing good. I mean, we got a lot going on, right, Freddie? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, we have, because obviously for those that are following Ronald on Twitter would have seen that he's also now following this whole Jen Shah case that's been going on. So we're going to be asking Ronald about that as well. He's also seen the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills trailer. So we're also going to get Ronald's insights and what he thought Erika had to say about what was going on with that as well.
It's wild. We're in for a bumpy ride this season. Can we start? What did you want to start with, Freddie? Jen?
Should we start with Jen Shah?
Yeah.
Because there was some news earlier today Ronald released about Erika, so that we'll do that. So with Jen, so thanks for coming on again, Ronald. We really appreciate it. So I guess the first question is that a lot of people have been asking is, how come Jen Shah and her scheme was investigated by the FBI, whereas Tom Girardi, who seems to have been at it for a lot longer, hasn't?
Well, because she was involved in a telemarketing scheme, and that's a classic type of wire fraud, and there was other defendants that had already been indicted. So they worked their way up the food chain, and they were probably as shocked as we were that Jen Shah was the beneficial owner or recipient of the alleged funds that were generated from the wire fraud scheme.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
there's an open case already.
Wow. Does the public know that? I don't think they know that. Do they, Freddie?
Well, what we do know is that there were 5 people that were arrested being involved in this scheme in November 2019, I believe it was. But apparently there were another 11 or 12 people involved as well. So is that true?
Yeah, she was brought into the case with a superseding indictment. Now, they either were going to indict her all along, or they waited until they could flip some of the earlier defendants. I don't know yet. But that's why they just put her case into the other defendants' cases, which is why I commented she's going to plead guilty, because those defendants have been around, and they probably, my guess is they probably indicted her because those defendants are saying, yeah, we did this, but this is who was getting the money. And you know, that's probably what happened. I mean, the other things I was commenting on was her bond. The minutes required her to produce it by last Friday. So we were on top of the docket till 11:59 p.m. Eastern time, but we never saw anything. So there was discussion at the hearing that if she needed another week to find 2 people that would sign for her for $1 million and also get the money together, that they could get it. But I didn't see a court order or a stipulation. So I'm a little confused as to why it wasn't posted in contravention of the minutes. However, I'm sure we'll see something by this Friday. I think her other problem is, where's she going to get $250,000 of clean money? You know, she has to show where it came from. And I don't think she has any other real property in Utah that I could find.
Because from what we've understood as well, she the last house she owned, she'd sold a while ago, and that she's renting property, so she technically doesn't own any property, which, and of course the money is offshore allegedly, because that's what they said in the release, that she was hiding this scheme due to the fact with using like alias names, encrypted apps, and offshore bank accounts. So when are we going to see any confirmation that Jen has paid this bond?
By Friday.
By Friday.
Yeah, otherwise you'll see a bench warrant issue.
And also, what about this, you know, who the other people involved are, when are those people likely to be named as well? As in the other people that are yet to be prosecuted?
Well, this may be the end. I mean, I saw a couple pleas already on the docket. I don't think everybody's going to trial in that case. This is the Southern District of New York. They don't indict people unless they can convict them. So I don't think that that's an issue.
Is it safe to say that Jen Shaw was pretty at the top of the food chain when it came to the scam?
Yes, that's the theory, and that's why she got indicted late, because there's an expression, you go after the low-hanging fruit. So they indicted the people that were obviously, selling directly to the victims.
Wow. Go ahead, Freddie.
And then you mentioned on Twitter that obviously this is yet another housewife involved with clearly dodgy finances. So in my guess is that clearly these people are not being vetted. Do you see that there could be laws where these people might have to vet these types of people properly?
Freddie, I'm so happy you asked that question. It was honestly, I was hoping you were going to ask that question. The first of all, it seems like there's always a pattern with the housewives. They have a house that's not in Beverly Hills with a lot of debt on it. It's like, and they have either paid tax liens or released tax liens or tax liens. So I appreciate people don't equate a tax lien to theft, but I mean, it's this symptom of over leveraged real estate, which, if you have a house that's worth $7 million and you have $5 million in debt, you understand the house isn't worth $7 million to you. It's worth $2 million.
Right.
Okay. And then you got to pay taxes on it. And then, there's these other liens. So there's already this symptom. I think that I put up a theory that, like any product that's put on the marketplace, it seems like when it concerns the First Amendment or like entertainment, it seems like every company, and this is a big issue, always wants immunity to say, look, I realize I'm forcing these people to spend beyond their means. I'm putting a lot of pressure on them to create content. But when they go out and steal from people to finance their lifestyle for the show's viewers and for our intellectual property content, we're not responsible because it's freedom of speech. And so I was just saying, as a theory, they should have some culpability for not vetting these people or putting on people that have a propensity to engage in fraud and not doing anything about it when they hear about it. Just like any other product that is put in the stream of commerce. Why do television creators get a pass in reality TV? Why is that product different than all other products? So that's why I pointed it out. I understand there's a complicated First Amendment issue, but I mean, I've had cases where, Zillow had imposters basically cause my client's house to go down $100 million in value, and there was real injuries. But they said, oh, well, we didn't post it. It was just on our website. So we're protected under what's called Section 230 immunity. That's a big deal right now, about if you're just basically letting someone put the content out there, then there's this immunity people get. So I think that the Housewives franchise, at what point do they take responsibility on a negligence theory for putting a dangerous and defective product on the marketplace, which is the human actors?
So I wanted to move on to the former CEO of Girardi Keese, and that's Chris Camon, I believe his name is, and his lack of cooperation. How long is that able to last, and when is it going to get to a point where the judge says, this is enough, you've got to cooperate, or there's going to be hell to pay, essentially?
Well, I mean, I was shocked that he took the Fifth Amendment yesterday, or not yesterday. I mean, in the bankruptcy proceedings. I mean, why would he be taking the Fifth Amendment? To me, if it was me and I commented on this today. You have Keith Griffin doesn't want to have his depot taken. David Lira doesn't want to have his depot taken. Nobody that ever worked for Girardi wants to have their depot taken for myriad of reasons. But this guy was subpoenaed by the Girardi Keys trustee, and now he doesn't even want to tell you how the company was operating. You know, to me, that's a bad sign that he would think that he could incriminate himself.
Do you think with people like David Lira, Keith Griffin, and this Chris Camon, that maybe the state bar might get involved and personally investigate these people? Because if you're pleading things like the Fifth, or you're sort of refusing to cooperate, that doesn't really look like you have an interest in cooperating with the courts, and sort of maybe shows a bit of guilt.
Yeah, I mean, look, if someone takes the Fifth Amendment, it doesn't, in the legal world, it's not an admission of guilt, but everyone knows that if you're going to take the Fifth, you got a problem of some sort. I mean, you have to assert it because you believe you can incriminate yourself. It can't be in bad faith, and they could have a hearing and you'd have to articulate to the judge why you believe your testimony could imperil you. So no one challenged it, so they must agree.
I got a question in my DM about pleading the Fifth. Explain how that works. You could still get in trouble, but you're just not going to incriminate yourself?
Well, in state court in California, you cannot punish someone for taking the Fifth or draw a negative inference. Okay. Federal court is a little different, but I want to make sure I understand your question clearly. Can you just clarify that?
Yeah, people were saying if you plead the Fifth, does that mean that you could still get in trouble? So
yes, of course. I mean, it's just that you're not going to get in trouble with your own words.
Got it.
You can't compel somebody to testify in any proceeding if it's going to incriminate it.
That's what I like about you. You clarify it for the people that want to know. Go ahead,
and
Fred.
You don't sugarcoat it either.
Yeah.
I wanted to move on to this whole $600,000 that Erika was requesting for out of the sale for when this Pasadena house goes up for sale. Now, obviously, the other day you put on Instagram that she had signed sort of agreements, meaning that lenders had priority of payment. So has there been any sort of legal response to Erika sort of saying, don't you remember what you've signed here?
Yeah, basically the judge punted and said, when you sell the house, you guys can fight over it then. The agreement will allow for, Girardi's first wife, anybody that has a valid lien is going to get paid before the Rugomez creditors, but he wasn't going to rule on Erika's exemption that day. It'll be decided when, they go over the sales, so what we call the distribution or the waterfall, then that's when they're going to go over it.
So, because we've got both Erika and Tom Girardi's previous wife, Karen Girardi, that are basically sort of trying to refuse the sale. So do you think Erika will get the $600,000 she's asking for, and Karen Girardi asking for the amount she is after?
I don't think Erika's going to get her exemption because the lender showed that she waived the exemption. I think that she's going to be behind that lender. It looks like when Tom did the loan that she waived any community property interest in the property. So I don't see how she gets an exemption in the property he owns. I don't see her being successul with that.
I wouldn't see the logic in that either. And I'm guessing with Tom Girardi's previous wife, that are they just going to probably work it out when that house sells?
I mean, first of all, the house is going to be on the market on the 18th, as I revealed today,
18.
and it's going to go into escrow, and they're going to try to get some money for it, and then there's not going to be anything left for him except the trustee may agree to carve out some exemption of his if I think that they may agree on a settlement so he gets a small amount of money from that sale so he doesn't contest it. He just needs someone to advocate it. But Erika's not going to get the 600. It's not her house.
So I think the trailer, the Beverly Hills trailer came out yesterday, I believe earlier than expected, because they usually release it on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And Erika played this victim game, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
And she was having beef with Sutton. How did you think how she played her cards basically in that trailer, Ronald?
Well, she telegraphed a lot. She tried to say that only Tom Girardi knows about about what happened to those retainers and client funds. It's all in his head, but that's convenient because he has dementia, so there is no head. It's a mushy head. So I don't understand how she's taking that position when she signed all those loan documents releasing her interests, and she's getting lottery payments. So I think that that's a weak position that's going to backfire. She was very vulgar and crude to the castmates, that she had a high degree of defensive-ness. And I think the viewers of this show, who are a lot of our viewers and a lot of my followers, they're smart. I get, these are very smart people that analyze this show. That's why it's different than movie watchers. People here love the backstory. They love challenging the representations. There's a whole market, people that like talking about reality TV, to call the BS to the mat. That's why I think that's sort of the pulse that I've attracted, is people that aren't just blindly watching this and saying, "Oh, it's all true." And I think that now that it's been weaponized and these people use the show to hurt people, I think it's created a whole new discussion that you're part of, that I'm part of, and that it's made it an interesting topic that has real world consequences.
Yeah. I wanted to ask a quick question, because on the show, she always says she's not allowed to talk about it. Is that a legit claim? Is she allowed to talk about it?
Of course. What do you mean? She talked about it all the time. She filed papers in the court.
So are there any sort of legalities that would mean that she can't talk about certain details of what's happening, or can she mention it all?
Yeah, can she?
Of course. There's no gag order. In fact, I've been critical of her. Why doesn't she just get on TV and say, "Hey, he did it all. Here's what I've got from this marriage. I'm cutting everyone a check for 25%. I need some money to live on, but look, I'm going to do something about it." All she's done is try to keep money for herself and not taking responsibility for her negligence. I mean, everyone says, well, maybe she didn't know. Well, whether she knew or should have known, she still has some culpability here. She's received money from that estate. She's still getting lottery payments that are clearly money from the firm and their fees that she can give back to the trustee, but she refuses to do so publicly.
This is overwhelming. I was believing them when they say we're not allowed to talk about it. I mean,
Why?
I I don't know. A lot of people believe it. Did you believe it, Freddie, when they say they're not allowed?
I wasn't sure. I thought maybe with some of them they were sort of being advised by lawyers to, or there were certain bits that weren't, if they weren't in court dockets that were public, then they sort of couldn't share that type of information. But I think that is a very interesting revelation, Ronald.
Let me jump into that so you understand an important concept. If they took the position you are not allowed to discuss the lawsuits or the embezzlement or the theft of client funds, and we just say, and they announced at the beginning of the show because there's a quote criminal investigation or this lawsuit, so nobody's allowed to ask any question about it. To me, that would be legitimate because there's no what's called waiver. The minute she says it was all in Tom's head and blames it on him, that's a waiver. You can't pick and choose, go hot and cold with assertions of Fifth Amendment or other privacy or what have you. The minute she started giving an explanation, then she's waived any objection to that entire subject matter, if that makes sense. So that's why I know it's BS. If it was a legitimate litigation strategy, they would just announce that, hey, my lawyer so-and-so has advised me I cannot talk about this because it would waive this privilege. Then I would say she had a legitimate basis, but there is no privilege. No, she does have, just so you guys know, a marital privilege between her and Tom Girardi that's not waived, but each of them can voluntarily waive the privilege. But right now, by her talking about it, she's already waived all those privileges because she's talked about the subject matter.
I have another question. Sorry, Freddie.
No, don't worry.
So some of the housewives have been known to, I don't know the correct word, lie and say that a case is closed when it's still open. Does those lies that you tell on TV, does that affect the real case?
Yes, because it's not what we call outtakes that are typically not subject to subpoenas. Once you put it on TV, it's an admission, as long as it's not edited. I've taken, like shows like Cops where they film police officers, hurting a client of mine, and the officer denied it. Then I would show the tape from the show. And then the argument would be, well, that was edited, so you're not seeing the full story. Fair enough. But sometimes we would beg the producer to give us what's called the outtakes to see all of it. But certain things are like irrefutable. Like I tweeted about that officer pulling over that lieutenant in the Army last week and macing him with pepper spray. And all those statements that were being filmed are admissible, including the statements of the lieutenant. So if the officer said it, you don't need to see the rest of it. It's if you're focusing on what did they say or what did they do. So when Erika is going on TV and making all these statements, they're all going to come back to haunt her, like her legal fund. Why does she need a legal fund? Is she using the show to raise money? And then they're looking at, millions of dollars of jewelry. Well, why would they be looking at it if they can't afford it? Is that another fraud?
And things that have mysteriously disappeared from the Pasadena house as well.
I mean, Sharrell, sometimes I am outraged in the middle of the night and I post something and the first guy to respond to me is Freddie because he's up in the UK. So without Freddie, I'd be alone out there sometimes in the middle of the night.
I know. I'm always. I have it set so it automatically notifies me when you upload anything on Twitter. So that's why I'm probably the first.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Because I love what you've got to spill all the time, because we need to know this, and that sort of is my job with Sharrell's World, is to know what's happening.
I just want to clarify one more thing. So if they tell lies on television, they got to be really careful because it can affect their true life court case. I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, yes, because if they change their testimony in a deposition, you can impeach them with a prior inconsistent statement from the TV show.
Wow. Go ahead, Freddie. Unbelievable. Go ahead, Freddie.
So obviously you watched the trailer yesterday, like both of us, Ronald. You mentioned that Sutton, well, she may not be sort of this really rich person as she makes out. You, due to the fact that she had a lot of debt on her former Bel Air property and a 263,000 state tax lien. So,
well, it was released. It was eventually released, and the property I referred to as an Upper Bel Air property had, a lot of debt on it and then they sold it last year. But I did throw out a teaser, and a lot of people responded to me saying, "Hey, she has the guts to take on Erika, so don't go after her too much." Which, I think that makes sense. But a lot of people said, "Come on, do a shallow dive." But it's the symptom. It's a symptom of. I mean, I don't know if you're going to go after Erika, you should have a clean, not live in a glass house. I mean, the only real heavy hitter that was on that show was my friend Kathy Hilton. She's legit. Okay, no one messes with her. She came on, and she is the housewife of Beverly Hills or wherever else she wants to be. So she comes in.
Yeah. And has always lived in prime Los Angeles area.
100%. And her husband is very successful, self-made. Her kids are extremely bright and made, very good business people. This is a very legit. They're like what I would think would be on the franchise, not all these other people.
So she has true blue money. She's not faking it.
There is, I mean, look, I don't want her calling me later and saying, I said you were wealthy. I'm saying she's successful. Her husband's successful. Her kids are successful, and she's a super good person. That's what I'm telling you. And I think she is true blue. Like, she, I guess she made a cameo on the show, but I mean, she could live wherever she wants and doesn't need to take advantage of anybody. As she said, my favorite line on the trailer was, the world is like a poker game. Everyone has to show their cards. She's not afraid if you draw her. You'll be in for a big surprise if you call a draw on Kathy Hilton.
So maybe, so it's time that Erika and people like Dorit maybe show their cards.
Ooh,
that won't happen. That won't happen.
You don't think?
No. I was surprised Dorit was going off about how horrified she was with the orphans and everything else. But again, I'm laying away from Dorit because after the one flare up, I haven't heard from her again. So again, I only have nice things to say about her.
She wasn't happy when you found out about her over 10 different lenders for that Encino house.
We're gonna leave it alone, Freddie.
We're leaving it alone. Yeah, we don't dig up. We don't look for trouble. That was a defensive position I took, and once I'm done defending, I move back to the main event. I mean, Erika Girardi is clearly the way she's snapping at everybody and swearing and the vulgarity on her Twitter page. To me, she better hope she's never a defendant because all these are going to be exhibits. I mean, wow. It's a callous, tone deaf position, and she's free to do it. But to me, it's bad public relations in the context of the devastation of people that are never going to see their settlements because of her husband's conduct.
Yeah, exactly. It's you would think, and this is just my opinion, that she would have a gentler tone. More. She's not. Go ahead, Freddie. Sorry. It's crazy. Go ahead.
Yeah. I with the house in Pasadena, going back to that again, how come it's taken so long for Compass, who are going to be listing this house, and the creditors to be getting these property onto the market?
You mean, why did it take so long between the court order?
Yeah, I guess so. It's quite a big asset that surely they'd want to sell off quite quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's there was a motion. You have to get the court to approve it. It took a couple weeks. No one opposed it. And then once they get on the case, The brokers had to put together a marketing plan. There was this litigation over the Girardi. She slowed it down with her objection on the settlement motion with the Rugomez. The trustee needs to know what is he really going to get out of this, because that affects pricing. So there was some disputes over the form of the order. I talked to parties involved, and then the brokers are launched. That dispute, the order was just filed yesterday, and the property is coming on the market. The order was submitted yesterday, and the property is coming on the market on a Sunday. So that's why there was what we call legal wrangling. Legal wrangling.
I want to thank you, Ronald, for doing this, because listen, in the past, if they lied on the show, people just believed it. Like you said to me, why did you think that? Because we don't know anything different. So I appreciate what you're doing, is making them accountable and, stop lying to the public. Is there any other important court dates that we need to know about coming up?
Well, there's some, the bankruptcy court has a lot of different things that sometimes materialize and sometimes don't materialize. And then in the Chicago case, there's motions to dismiss by Lira and Griffin. And then the probate case has different conservatorship hearings. And then the dissolution case with Erika and Tom have prospective hearings. I mean, there's so many cases, Sharrell, that it's easier for me just to comment as material events happen, because things are scheduled, then moved. I would just say that there's so many things going on, and it's such a complicated story that everyone on your show is fortunate that you guys have created an unbelievable learning curve, to basically provide a platform for everybody to understand this complex web of people and how they've impacted so many other people, and yet they're still doing a show as business as usual. It's such a complicated series of conflicts, ethical dilemmas, moral compass decisions. And then you have, your affiliates like Freddie, who's on top of this morning, noon, and night, and the public is getting great content that they can discuss and analyze. I really believe there's been a void because people generally, I think, don't have the abilities all the time to question things they see on TV because they're not in the same sort of business, where a lawyer, a practicing lawyer, is in the business of hammering assertions. And so that's what we're all doing on your show, is discussing what is being promoted and then analyzing it with a jauntist but serious lens.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly so thank you. Do you have any more questions, Freddie?
I think I think one last thing, because I'm obviously very conscious of your time, Ronald, and that is, have we missed anything, and what should we be expecting from Jen Shah and Stuart and Erika, Girardi and Tom?
Well, I think we got to see who's really going to put up the bail, because I think it's important. We know that Stuart's wife is going to handle his bond, but I really am interested as to where Jen Shah's got another $250,000, because she hired some of the most expensive attorneys in the United States, which was a big shocker to me, that whatever money was going to be available to make restitution, it seems like she's spending it on her legal fees. And I think that that's a concern of mine, because that money is going to be gone forever. And then the other thing is, who's going to really sign for her that's this close to her? And what is their involvement with her? She used to be Jennifer Louis, a nurse. I don't know if you guys know that.
No.
Yeah, she was a registered nurse in California. I think her license is now expired. She has a very interesting background. I didn't do a big deep dive on her background because we have an open criminal case, but I think that we just got to see how this all pans out and get some more facts. But she's in deep. There's multiple victims. It's not like when she posts stuff on her IG page, free Jen Shah, you got to realize that the prosecutor looking at that is thinking this woman is not appreciating the severity of what's going on. First of all, she is free. She's on bail. The judge didn't even make her post anything. Well, I mean, either way, it's so silly. No one cares whether she's free or not. I mean, a jury's going to decide if she's free or she's going to plead guilty. I mean, I'm telling you, she's going to plead guilty. Okay. I don't care what anyone wants to tell you. They did not indict a celebrity at the end of a criminal case after they've investigated this thing for 3 years because they don't have any evidence. I'm just going to explain this to you. This is federal court. Mm-hmm. They indict when they're really, 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 really sure.
But thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. We'll be touching bases with you and set something back up, but you really explained a lot, especially in this video with the both cases. And you answered a lot of questions that the public wanted to know. So
well, have a great week, you guys, and we'll see you soon.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, Ronald.
You're welcome.
See you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.